Hey everyone, I hope you're doing really well today. Wherever you are in the world, whatever kind of day you've had, I want to thank you for showing up here. Realize that there, because what I'm about to share with you could change the way you see the men in your life forever. Now, whether you're dating someone, married, in a situationship, realize that there, or just navigating the wild world of modern romance, I want to invite you to listen closely, because this topic isn't about manipulation or seduction, it's about connection. Real deep, their lasting connection. We live in a culture that talks a lot about what women need emotionally, and that's important. But what often gets ignored is what men need beneath the surface. They're underneath the strong face, the pride, the silence. Let's be honest, when we talk about intimacy, the conversation often centers around sex, as if that's the peak of connection for a man there. But I want to challenge that today, because the truth is, what touches a man's soul, what truly stays with him long after the physical is gone, is something far more powerful than sex there. And if you understand what that is, you don't just become attractive, you become unforgettable. So today, let's talk about what really hits a man at his core. Let's dive into the 6 that move him, open him, and bond him to you in a way that no physical act ever could. Realize that they're one of the most powerful things you can ever offer a man, something that hits deeper than sex, something that speaks to the part of him he rarely lets anyone see, is emotional acceptance without judgment. Most men grow up learning to be strong, stoic, unshakable. They're told not to cry, they were not to talk too much about their feelings, not to be vulnerable. And even as adults, many men carry that pressure into every relationship they enter. Been taught, directly or indirectly, that being emotional makes them less masculine, less reliable. So what do? They bury their fears, hide their insecurities there, and try to keep up the image of the man who's always okay. But deep down, every man longs for a space where he doesn't have to wear the armor, a place where he doesn't have to be the fixer, the tough guy, or the one who always has it together. And when he meets a woman who can offer that emotional safety, who can sit with his silence, who doesn't rush to solve his sadness, who doesn't label him as for expressing pain, that woman becomes unforgettable. She becomes rare. You see, sex or release, it's exciting, it's passionate. Realize that there. But when a man can lay next to someone and feel emotionally understood, when he can speak from his wounds and not be shamed or interrogated, that's intimacy on a whole other level. There, it makes him feel like he can truly be himself, not the version of himself that performs for the world, but the real, raw, sometimes messy version that he usually hides. They realize that when you listen without judgment, when you look him in the eye and say, I hear you, I get it, there, you don't have to be perfect here. You're giving him something he may never have received, not even from his family, his friends, or his past partners. You're becoming his safe space in a world that constantly demands he be strong. And you'd be surprised how few people offer men that. Most of the time, when a man starts opening up, he gets told to man up, to stop overthinking, or worse, his vulnerability gets used against him later. So when you create a space of unconditional emotional acceptance, they realize that where there's no scoreboard, no judgment, no threat of that moment being weaponized, you're giving him a kind of love that hits deeper than anything physical ever could. It's not about fixing him or psychoanalyzing him. It's just about being present, curious, and kind. That kind of acceptance creates trust, and trust builds emotional intimacy. And that, there more than anything, is what creates the kind of bond men remember for life. Because long after the passion fades or the initial excitement wears off, what he truly remembers is how he felt in your presence. And if he felt safe to be his true self with, you'll never want to let that go. They're one of the most overlooked desires men quietly, often unknowingly, is the longing to be seen beyond what they do. You see, men are constantly judged and measured by their roles. They're the provider, the problem solver, the achiever. He's the guy who shows up, pays the bills, fixes the car, handles the stress. And while those things are important and often done with love, realize they aren't the whole of who he is. Unfortunately, that's where most people stop seeing him. Even in relationships, men can start to feel like they're only valued for their usefulness. what they bring to the table, how much they earn, how strong they are in a crisis. But beneath all of that is a real human being who wants to be seen as more than just a function. And when a woman comes along who takes the time to see that, that part of him that still has dreams, fears, creativity, softness, depth, that one becomes different because she's not loving him for his resume. She's connecting with the man behind the mask. You have to understand, realize that most men are starving for someone to notice the parts of them they rarely reveal. Maybe he's a musician at heart, but hasn't touched his guitar in years. There may be he loves poetry or used to write stories as a kid, but buried that side because life demanded something else. Realize that there, maybe he struggles with self-doubt in ways no one would guess just by looking at him. And when you make space for those parts, when you gently ask about them, when you show real interest, not because you're trying to fix him or get something, but simply because you see him, you create emotional intimacy that no physical act can replace. Realize that it's one of the most attractive things you can dog to say, I love the way your mind works, or you light up when you talk about that, or even there. You don't always have to be the strong one with me. That kind of attention is healing. It tells him you matter, not for what you do, for who you are. And that's rare. Realize that most men don't expect it. They've been so conditioned to offer performance instead of presence that they start believing that's all they're worth. So when you come along and say, no, I see you. I see that you behind the effort. It disarms him, it draws him in, and it makes him want to be around you. Not because you need him to be strong, but because he feels strong just by being himself around you. That's a powerful shift. It's where the real connection begins, not in the body, but in the soul. Because ultimately, they're being seen fully, deeply, and authentically is the kind of intimacy that lingers long after the lights go out, long after the excitement fades. Realize that it's the kind of presence that leaves a permanent imprint. And that's what truly hits deeper than sex. If there's one thing that lands deep in a man's heart, something that builds lasting emotional connection, it's feeling genuinely respected by the woman he loves. They're not surface level compliments, not hollow flattery, but real grounded respect. You see, for most men, respect isn't about being feared or praised excessively. It's about being seen and valued for their effort, their intent, and their consistency. So many men go through life trying to prove their worth by what they do, not because they crave power but because they've been conditioned to believe that what do is the only thing, that they've learned that their actions must always speak louder than their words So when a man puts in effort for you, whether it's picking you up on a stressful day or working long hours to provide or remembering the little things that matter to you, he's saying in his own way, I care about you, but here's the things most men rarely ask to be appreciated. They just hope you notice. And when you do, when you pause and say, realize that I see how hard you're trying. Thank you. It means everything to him, not because he needs constant validation, but because it tells him that he's not invisible, that his silent efforts haven't gone unnoticed. Respect to a man is love in a language he understands deeply, and it's even more powerful when it comes from someone he admires. Realize that it's easy to respect someone when they're perfect, when they're winning, when they're showing their best side. But what truly hits deep is when respect continues even when he's at his low points, when he's not making as much money, when he's overwhelmed, when he's unsure of himself. If you can look him in the eye and say, I still believe in you, when he's doubting himself, you've just reached a part of him no one else has. That doesn't mean you ignore mistakes, use bad behavior. It means you communicate with grace, not with contempt. It means offering feedback without humiliation. It means holding space for growth without making him feel like a disappointment. And yes, it means giving him the benefit of the doubt, especially when his actions show you he's trying. You'd be amazed at how deeply a man opens up when he feels truly respected, not as a perfect person, but as a man doing his best. Respect doesn't just strengthen love, it creates loyalty. It makes him feel proud to be in your presence, proud to protect and cherish you, and motivated to keep showing up for the relationship. Because the truth is, men don't just want to be loved. They want to be looked up to by the woman they love when you give that kind of sincere earned respect, not through praise, but through presence. It doesn't just touch his ego, it touches his heart. And that more than anything,
Ruth is going to help me with this. and I'm going to give you some time, and maybe you can discuss methods and things that you can do to create this trust and space. And we'll return back and we'll talk about it.
Okay, so we're going into breakout rooms and we're going to talk about how we think we can build trust and safe spaces in associate coaching, bearing in mind all of those things that you've just said to us, where you might only meet somebody and immediately be coaching them. You won't have had a discovery session. You've got a very short time to build that relationship with them. So just going to think about that in our groups. Let me just change the number of groups I've got. If you find yourself in a group with nobody, please come back and we'll put you in another group. If you're not able to join the breakout group, just stay in here with us. How long do you want for these groups, Alejandra? Is 5 minutes?
5 minutes should be enough, yeah.
Okay, so 5 minutes. Off we go. Enjoy your conversations. Right, I think you have everybody back now.
So yeah, maybe we were saying this, right? Now, Ariane, establish clear intentions and boundaries. So it's also communicate the session purpose. So why you doing that coaching, for what program, what purpose is that program? Every program is going to have a different objective. And the confidentiality that we mentioned before. Be fully present and attentive. Richard mentioned this, like being present. Practice active listening and show authenticity, interest, show empathy and understanding. Validate emotions. Mirror language to align also. That is very important. So the language that the person is using should be the most aligned that you can. Maintain consistency and reliability. Be punctual, super important. Be punctual. Prepare. In associate coaching, prepare is a must, and follow through. Encourage open dialogue and autonomy. Invite the client input and reaffirm the expertise. Let them know that they know what they are, the ones that they know more about themselves. So when they are talking and expressing, reaffirm that this came from themselves. Create a not judgmental atmosphere. This is something that has been said also. And be transparent and honest. And for me, honest is one of the things also. I think if you're transparent and honest and you're like an easy person, you show yourself like what you see is what you are, also gives quite a lot of, to the other side, kind of like, okay, fine. And here mainly it's also talk about the art of listening and powerful questions, and we were talking about this before. They're part of the list of the creating trust. Active listening maximizes engagement, builds rapport, and prevents misunderstandings. So it's very important. I do remember one of my first coaches. The feedback that they gave me is, I can't believe, Alejandra, that you always remember from session to session really tiny details that I said. And she used to love this. And it's because I was like completely fully engaged. She felt hurt. The fact that I was remembering small details, she felt hurt. And this is something that we all want, right? Especially when we become a little bit vulnerable. And then the powerful questions. Of course, coaching is all about powerful questioning, right? But facilitates a reflection to the coachee and drives them toward meaningful outcomes by themselves. Here are some examples that you can use. I'm sure you must have yours also. But what's the most important thing for us to focus on in today's session? What's one thing that's been on your mind recently that you'd like to explore? What's one challenge you're facing, and what's one strength that might help you overcome it? And if you were to take one small step forward on this, what might that look like? This is some of the, but as I said also, Ruth, before, I do remember I was having a chat in 2018 with her, and it was the beginning of my journey as a coach. And she suggested this book that says, and the next question is. And you know what? I mean, it helps. It helps and a lot, because sometimes you kind of like, I don't know, you don't know, you cannot think of a good question, and you cannot do a close question, and you know you cannot do that. And before this session, you know already the tendency of that coach, and more or less, so you can go by sections of autoesteem or self-image or something, and then check and take some questions. Just to let you know, it's very good. Then the empathy and intelligence, emotional intelligence in coaching. Obviously, empathy, I think, is one of the characteristics that us coaches have to do this job. And but we have to show it. And we have to show it to the coachee to create a safe space, not judgmental environment, and validate the client with his emotions or whatever, not feeling judged at all. And that will make the client to be open and vulnerable with you. And the emotional intelligence manages complex emotions and provides steady support. So guide the clients in processing emotions effectively. So let's say that together, empathy and emotional intelligence establish trust and manage sessions dynamics. And this is important too. Because when the same as empathy builds rapport, emotional intelligence keeps the session focused and safe. So keep an eye on these also as a tool for creating this quick report. Said that, we're gonna do another exercise before we go into the part that it's gonna be more focused into associate coaching. What we did up until now, it's been talking about the depth and trust techniques or ways to create trust, active listening, powerful questions, and empathy and emotional intelligence. This is good. And now we have that. And we understand that in associate, things work different because the timings are shorter, and sometimes you need to create the rapport even before the session. The rapport even before the session. So we're going to put you in rooms again, and you could maybe describe this exercise where how will you build this relational depth and trust that we're talking in this workshop, focusing in, for example, your profile picture that you present into the company, your bio presentation that you also present to the company. So ultimately, the client is going to see that. And your first session. So once you get chosen, you have your first session. So if you could please consider how you create already this trust and these three options, and then we come back and we can talk about it.
Okay, so I'm just creating those rooms, and we go recreate rooms. So let me just put one more person back in first. Okay, let's recreate the rooms, and okay, we just check. Make sure you can convert. So I've done 5 minutes again, Alejandra. Is that okay?
Let's put maybe 10 here because there's three things. So
Okay.
or maybe we can put 10 and maybe ask like how they going. I mean, they can always leave.
Should we go in the middle? Should we go 8 minutes?
Let's do that.
I'm just looking at you. So you've got 35 minutes left for the rest of your session. So I just want to make sure you've got time to do everything that you want to do, and have some questions at the end.
Yes.
Right, let's open rooms. As before, if you can't join a room or you find yourself on your own, just come back or stay here. Off we go.
So I'm going to go into the next slides that I prepare. So when you work for a coach associate, as a work associate for a company, you become the coach for the company. Whether you are Coach Hub, so you're gonna be the Coach Hub coach for the client, the Better Up coach for the client, the Ezra coach for the client. Yeah. So you become the coach who gives that image for that company. So either you're selling, although you're selling yourself as a coach, you are the image of the company. You are an associate, and this is important to know. And it's important to know because that means that you have to do your homework to know for who you're applying to be a coach. I was talking before that it could be like executive, like coach, but even if you're going into the executive coach, you need to understand how every company wants to market. Said that, when we're talking about the picture, maybe it's something that for you will find like it's obvious, but here I'm saying it's really important to sound a high resolution, clear, and looking really professional. I know we're not artists or actors or actresses, trying to have an audition, but it's not an audition. But if the company works that the client is able to go through pictures and bios, your image is going to be really important because your image is going to be, and I think it's happened to all of us, like, yeah, that person, I could work with that person, or, no, I don't know. And it needs to be professional. So you have to be well dressed, looking like a coach, good background, good light, and really good high resolution. Also, something that sounds really obvious is that it has to be up to date. And with this, I'm saying this because while I was working as a coach network manager, there was 2 cases of 2 coaches that they didn't get enough clients. And I suggested to change the picture